The Bonnyville Regional Fire Authority is in the middle of a plan to modernize and has just received 2 new fire trucks. As Clayton Brown explains, the equipment comes with a nearly $600,000 price tag and is long overdue.
It's part of a 12-year plan, upgrading all the equipment. And just this month, the Regional Fire Authority added a rescue pumper and a brush truck.
We have one left to go after this, and we will have all of our vehicles into the modernization program, which has us operating a fleet with vehicles no older than 15 years.
The upgraded trucks mean new technology to assist firefighters battling blazes, but they also help fire stations attract more volunteers.
It's also a great recruiting tool. When you're recruiting volunteer firefighters, they want to be part of a completely modern operation.
Along with the 2 new fire trucks, this afternoon the Bonnyville Regional Fire Authority received a $40,000 donation from Cenovus to go towards a new training facility.
That fire training facility will contain a 4-story burn tower, which will allow us to do live fire training in a multi-story structure.
The new training facility is expected by the end of August. In Bonnyville, Clayton Brown, Newcap News.
Sean Atleo has won a second term as the National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations. His victory is seen as a sign that Native leaders would still rather try to work with Ottawa than become more confrontational. Atleo won over 8 candidates last night in Toronto, including George Stanley from the Frog Lake First Nations. Meantime, a woman from Frog Lake is participating in a hunger strike at the First Nations band office. Doris Stanley started the strike yesterday. She doesn't plan to stop until the language in the band charter is changed to something the community would better understand.
Policy changes, also a further greater understanding of what the legislation that we are supposed to fall into.
She is also questioning the quality of both housing and water treatment in the area, using her experience as a former human resources worker as proof of the ban's ineffectiveness.
I saw for myself, the injustice, the unfairness, in everything, in employment, because I was working here. I saw it firsthand.
Elk Point RCMP were called out to the band office last night and, according to Stanley, charged her with mischief, but later dropped the charges after they escorted her outside. The representative we spoke to from Frog Lake's band would not comment on any of the accusations, calling it just a personal vendetta by a single member of the community after she was fired from the band last month. Coming up, a 3rd day of tragedy for a Toronto neighborhood as another falls victim to gun violence. Stay tuned.
Stocks and oil prices brought to you by Spectrum Restoration. When disaster strikes, don't wait. Call the professionals at Spectrum Restoration, a certified member of the Canadian Disaster Restoration Group.
For the third time this week, there's been a deadly shooting incident in Toronto. A man believed to be in his 20s was found in a schoolyard overnight. That comes as police struggled to investigate a block party on Monday that left 2 young people dead and almost 24 wounded. Here now is more on the reaction to the violence.
It happened again. Last night, another person shot and killed in Toronto. Another neighborhood on edge.
You can't sit outside. You sit outside, you get shot. You live in the main ground, your windows get busted with shots. How safe is this?
Good question. In Toronto this week, 4 people were killed and at least 26 people shot over the course of just 3 days. In the worst incident, 2 gunmen started firing during a community barbecue. The wounded included a toddler. This was just the latest in a summer of shootings that saw gunshots fired in a popular downtown shopping mall and during a fireworks display celebrating Canada Day.
As you can see, it's not just this community. We've got a gun cancer in this city, in this country, and they better take it seriously.
Some say the only way to stop the violence quickly is to add more police officers.
We're still in Toronto operating with numbers that were from the mid-70s in terms of police officers, somewhere in the range of 5,000. That hasn't changed in over 35 years.
Others disagree.
Saying that more police is the answer? No. That will not solve the problem. What will solve the problem is a community cooperative approach.
Still others called for better funding for social programs.
Young minds have come to our program from places who have been in gangs and their lives have been changed.
That's not the approach favored by Toronto's mayor.
Best social program's a job. I don't believe in these programs. I call them their Hug a Thug programs, and they haven't been very productive in the past, and I don't know why we're continuing with it. That money should be spent on people paying less taxes.
Whatever the method, most agree something at least has to be done to stop the shootings. Aaron Saltzman, CBC News, Toronto.
An update now on the bizarre case of an accused killer and his booby-trapped house in Barrie, Ontario. The bomb squad finally finished defuzzing the place today.
It's what residents in this Barrie neighborhood have been waiting 7 days to hear.
Please to get them back to the comfort of their own home tonight.
Residents have been out of their homes ever since police made an unusual and unexpected discovery. Tonight we get our first look inside the homemade bunker they found, filled and rigged with explosives and other weapons.
Up to 83 IEDs and 29 various firearms.
Joe Ouellette lives just a few doors down from the massive and now emptied weapons cache, allegedly stockpiled by William Feldhoff.
You know, you don't see these kind of things in this area, or you don't think these things happen in this kind of area, and yet here it is.
The weapons are one thing. Feldhoff is also facing charges as an accessory to murder in this Barrie court. It was a brief video appearance. He was prohibited from further communication with his son, who last week turned himself into police. He was charged with a 34-year-old murder. A subsequent search warrant led them to the weapons in his father's house.
He's been a dedicated family man. He's 76 years old. He's never had any trouble whatsoever.
Feldhoff's lawyer says he was traumatized by his boyhood years in post-war Germany.
And obviously that stayed with him, and it sort of triggered this survivalist instinct that came to the fore when he decided to build that bunker.
Back at the house, police are still cleaning up. No word on when they will be completely moved out. Stephen Bull, CBC News, Barrie.
And just to note, we have just learned that police will be pulling out of that neighborhood this evening. An immigrant community in Lethbridge is shocked by the shooting death of one of their own by police. The man was originally from Bhutan and spoke very little English. The shooting occurred after police received a call about a disturbance.
Hemlal Timsina and his wife are in mourning. They aren't related to the man who was shot by police, but as part of the Bhutanese community, the death feels like a loss in the family.
We're saddened, shocked, and don't know where to approach. We are lost.
Timsina has been helping to organize tomorrow's funeral. He says Dure Dari is the 26-year-old who Lethbridge police shot on Sunday night, prompting a provincial investigation. Few other details about the circumstances of the shooting are known. Over 500 Bhutanese live in the city. They spent years in refugee camps in Nepal, fearing armed officers, and anxiety now returning in their new home.
When we came here, and one of the best country in the world, we thought, but now people are manipulating whether we made a right decision to come here.
The chief of police refuses to comment on the shooting or the effect on the force's relationship with the Bhutanese population. Community workers who help each immigrant settle in are struggling to communicate the message: Canada isn't perfect.
With all of the benefits that you find in this new country, in this new community, life is still life.
An ongoing struggle for newcomers arriving and wanting answers about the shooting and the safety of their new home. News like this spreads quickly.
I expect the pipeline has already made its way back to Nepal. I expect people to know what's gone on even before they left.
The unfortunate incident won't stop immigration. Another plane carrying around 30 Bhutanese refugees will touch down on the tarmac this evening, as it has in the past every few months and will continue to do in the future. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Lethbridge.
Thank you for that, Peter. Now, we've had our fair share of wet weather so far this growing season, which may cause an influx of insects in the coming weeks. In this week's Agriculture Report, Peter Quinlan tells us what bugs to watch out for in the fields.
Canola crops are in full bloom across the region, but there's more than meets the eye. Many areas have been hit hard by hail, heavy downpours, and localized flooding.
There's been a lot of challenges this year, adverse weather, some areas where they didn't get a good plant stand established, but the crop is doing fairly well for the most part right here and around the Lloydminster area. The crops are looking very good.
But there are more challenges ahead. Yerke says the biggest disease issue this year is Sclerotinia stem rot.
If we look at this particular crop here, it's too late to spray for the disease at this point. And if there are growers who did not spray, there is a fairly significant risk that this disease could be showing up in their crop. Canola bugs.
And insects are on the move as well, the biggest one to watch out for being the Bertha armyworm.
As you go east into Saskatchewan, they're already finding significant amounts of Bertha damage. We could see some of that here. And diamondback moth is the other big one that'll eat up pods, and that could be showing up here in the next few weeks.
To avoid any unpleasant surprises, Yerke recommends using a sweep net while scouting fields for insects, checking for leaf litter on the ground for Bertha armyworm damage, and pulling up plants and whacking them to check for the diamond black moth.
So, unfortunately, guys got to get out into the field and walk through the crop and take a look to see what's munching on it, and if there is anything, then they'll need to take some action on it. Okay, let's see what we got in here.
Peter Quinlan, Newcap News.